As you might expect, losing Enkidu was doing a number on Gilgamesh. Not only had he lost his dearest partner, but he'd been forced to face one inescapable truth, that he too would one day shuffle off this mortal coil, and Enkidu's vision of the afterlife hadn't exactly been a party. So as he wandered the wilderness, fueled by a cocktail of grief and existential dread, he decided on a new quest. You see, legend told of an ancient man, Ur-Shanabi, an otherwise ordinary mortal, who had gained immortality. Gilgamesh would find him, and glean from him his secrets. It was a rocky start, he was still a bit of an emotional wreck, and on spying some lions he ran and hid, fearful of death. Cowering, he prayed to Sin the moon to keep him safe. Having a fretful snooze under that nightlight of the gods, he awoke with his fear diminished. Facing the lions once more, this time he smote them. Carrying an empty stomach and his finery somewhat worse for wear, he skinned the creatures for clothing and ate their meat. His searching strategy seems to have been little more than picking a direction and walking, so his journey took him far and wide. Ever the sun shone over him, and having spent a long time watching his favourite mortal crisscross the land, Utu bent down and spoke to the lost soul. "Hey there, Gilgamesh. Looks like you're having a rough time."
Utu, I'm fine.
"I'm just worried about you, buddy. Maybe take a break?" "I mean, I get you have this quest and all, but I feel like it's going to be a lot of effort for nothing."
"There'll be time enough to rest when I'm dead."
"Yeah, that's kind of what I'm worried about. But alright, kiddo, I'm here if you need me." Eventually, Gilgamesh came to the mountain Mashu, which guards the rising sun. A tunnel speared its way through the heart of the mountain, and Gilgamesh aimed to traverse it. The way, however, was guarded by a pair of fearsome scorpion folk. Once more Gilgamesh cowered, but managed to pull himself together long enough to approach the terrors. The creatures themselves analysed the interloper on his approach.
"Hello, someone's coming. Rough fella, covered in pelts."
"Another mortal looking to head down the tunnel?"
Weird though, this one's got god stuff in him."
"Right you are. About 2/3, I reckon. Remaining third human." "Alright, pal, what are you doing here? It's a tricky old schlep, that wilderness."
"I seek my ancestor, immortal Ur-Shanabi, that I might learn his secrets. I warn you, fearsome creatures, do not bar my way."
Don't worry about us, pal. We're just here to warn folk. Shouldn't really let you through, you see. This path is right treacherous. Takes 12 whole watches to walk, and generally speaking, mortals walking it tend to perish in all-consuming darkness."
"Well, I won't."
"Fair enough, carry on then."
Gilgamesh set off down the tunnel, and true to the guard's warning, it was hard going. The darkness was dense, and by the first watch, light was already entirely absent. Even the tunnel entrance could no longer be seen. But he was determined and progressed, slowly but surely, until by the 9th watch he felt wind on his face. Further, and finally, on the 12th watch, he made it through, and his eyes were treated with beauteous wonders. The brilliance of the sun shone down on the trees of the gods, fruit-bearing trees of lapis and carnelian, agate and hematite. But Gilgamesh had no time for baubles. Beyond the garden was the seashore, towards which Gilgamesh wandered and wondered, all the while observed by curious eyes. On the shore there was a tavern, kept by brewer/tavern keeper Siduri. She saw Gilgamesh from afar and wondered to herself,
"Who is this scary man who looks like he hunts wild bulls, and why is he coming this way?"
She retreated inside, and when Gilgamesh arrived, he found the door barred.
"Tavern keeper, why do you hide? Let me in, or I'll smash this door down."
"I saw this massive filthy bloke covered in pelts and weapons heading straight for my door. Thought it might be trouble. And I must say, all this talk of smashing doors in is not helping your case."
"Oh, right. Yes, that's fair." The tavern keeper listened from a roof as Gilgamesh told her his story of his magnificent feats with Enkidu, of slaying Huwawa and the Bull of Heaven, and of Enkidu's all-too-mortal demise. "And so I seek immortal Ur-Shanabi to learn his secrets. If you know the way, tell me, or let me wander the wilds once more." The tavern keeper was moved enough to warn him.
"Look, Gilgamesh, was it? Crossing the ocean is stupid dangerous. Utu pops across on his daily travels, sure, but he's a god. No mortal has made the journey in a long, long time. And even if you try, when you get halfway, you'd need to find a way to cross the poisonous waters of death."
She hesitated before gesturing nearby.
"You don't seem to be the type to be swayed by warnings. So if you must continue, look, that way is Ur-Shanabi's boatman, Ur-Shanabi, and his crew of stone ones. If there is a way, he'll find it. Just let him see your face, he'll get something's up."
"Right.
'Cause you look rough."
Yes, okay.
"I mean, desolation is just etched across."
"Yes, I get it, thank you." Gilgamesh left in search of this boatman, and sure enough found him nearby. Or maybe he was still struggling with expressing his grief from Enkidu's death. Maybe he was still not far enough grown from the tyrant king we began with. Whatever the case, Gilgamesh found himself overcome by an inexplicable rage, and offered Ur-Shanabi the traditional Gilgamesh greeting of beating the ever-loving shit out of him. Ur-Shanabi at least saw the glint of Gilgamesh's axe, and drew his own, but Gilly was on them like an arrow. His time in the wilds had not diminished his martial prowess a jot, and as quickly as it began, Ur-Shanabi was pinned and the stone ones were destroyed.
Alright, I yield. What do you want? Who are you?
I am Gilgamesh of Uruk.
Well, how do you do, Gilgamesh of Uruk? I am Ur-Shanabi. Now, it would be Actoth that you obliterated me and mine, but I can respect a good brawl, and I can see from the haggard desolation etched across your face that you've been through some shit.
Gilgamesh once more relayed the highs and lows of his recent past to the surprisingly understanding boatman. And so I seek Ur-Shanabi. If you know the way, tell me. If not, I'll return to my wandering.
Well there, chap. So happens I could have helped you, but the only reason I could cross the waters of death in the first place was with the help of my stone ones, which you charmingly destroyed not too long ago, remember?
Yes, sorry about that. Is there no other way?
Well, now you mention it, yeah. Tell you what, pop over to the forest, cut and strip a few hundred 5-rod poles, and bring them back here.
Gilgamesh accepted the side quest, got to work with his axe, and true to form, came back to Ur-Shanabi with the poles. Together they set off, a boat crewed by 2, and managed to cover the journey of a month and a half in but a few days, before arriving at the waters of death.
Alright pal, grab those poles. What you'll want to do is take them one at a time and punt us across. The main trick is not to let the water touch your hand, lest it wither away.
Pole by pole they progressed across the water. After all the poles had been used, they'd crossed much of the distance, but not quite enough. With some quick thinking, Gilgamesh disrobed and fashioned his clothes into a makeshift sail. With his own body standing in his yardarm, they were able to make it the rest of the way. On the far shore, ancient eyes observed the scene. Ur-Shanabi wondered aloud.
This fellow holding his clothes aloft isn't one of mine. Who is he, and why are all the stone thingamies smashed up? Something's not right.
The boat reached shore, and Gilgamesh stepped off to greet the old man.
Hail, Ur-Shanabi. I am Gilgamesh of Uruk. Hello there. Tell me, Gilgamesh, whose features are burnt by frost and sun, who approaches me in a lion's garb. Why is your face so desolate? What fills your heart with such deep sorrow?
Once again, Gilgamesh relayed his tragic tale, and Ur-Shanabi listened patiently.
And so I decided to set out into the wilderness, to seek out far-off Ur-Shanabi. I have scourged myself with sleeplessness, crossed and recrossed mountain and ocean to finally get here, that you might teach me how to avoid beloved Enkidu's mortal fate. Oh, Gilgamesh, foolish child. You were crafted from both god and human flesh. You were given a throne and advisors, sumptuous food and fine garments over the rags of a fool. But now you have wandered from your temples and people, worn yourself out, and for what? Death comes for all, even young men and women cut down in their prime. No one sees death's face, no one hears death's voice. It is the Anunnaki who created life and death. They decreed that Mamitu, Lady of Destiny, will decide the day of our final breath according to her own inscrutable whims, and that day would be hidden from us.
Gilgamesh considered the man's words with uncharacteristic calm.
Ur-Shanabi, I look at you now and see but a man, like me. Yet while I had fully intended to fight you, before you I find my hand stayed. Still, you speak of mortality, but I know this isn't the case for you. Tell me, how is it that you came to stand with the gods? How did you achieve eternal life? Come, Gilgamesh, let me reveal to you a secret tale of the gods.
A fair old while ago, the gods created people. These people grew in number and eventually created cities. Now while we're going around humaning about, we're making a bunch of noise, which some of the gods found rather irritating. Enlil in particular couldn't sleep, so he gathered the other gods in secret and set forth a plan to get a good night's rest, specifically send a great flood to wipe us out. Now Enki, god of water and mischief, was quite fond of us humans, and he popped down to the city of Shurapak to warn us. He had of course been sworn to secrecy, so when he came to one Ur-Shanabi,
He didn't speak to him at all, but instead spoke to the walls of his house.
hello wall, spoiler warning, the gods are going to send a flood to kill all these nice people, so what would be a real keen idea is if someone were to destroy this house and build instead a big old boat, then take their family on board with the seeds for all living things. Like an ark, if you like, just make sure it's watertight. I hear and obey, Master Enki, but what shall I tell the others who ask what I'm doing? Just tell them you're heading off, that Enlil hates you and they'll be showered with fortune when you leave. They'll certainly have more fish than they can eat. Ur-Shanabi and his people got to work, creating a boat to Enki's specifications. By day 5, the hull was in position and the team got to sealing it with oil, and loading the decks with kith and kin, possessions, all creatures of the field and the wild, as well as members of all skills and crafts. Inevitably, the day came when dark clouds crawled over the horizon, and Ur-Shanabi's people rushed to seal themselves in the boat, and just in time, for then the gods descended, breaking open weirs and scorching the land with lightning. The sky turned black as gales blew, and the storm crashed over the land, smashing it like clay. Then, the promised flood. It passed over the land like a battle, and in the darkness and destruction, people could not find one another as they were wiped out. Shit guys, we might have gone a bit too far. Yes, even the gods looked on in horror at their own machinations. They retreated atop their mountain, and there the Anunnaki cowered and wept, regretting their harsh punishment. Ururu, who had birthed us, was particularly broken up.
How could I speak this evil? How could I destroy my people? I who gave birth to them. And now, they fill the ocean like fish.
The storm raged for a week, but on the 7th day subsided and the ocean grew calm. All was still as Ur-Shanabi cracked open a vent and felt the sun on his face. The boat had run aground on the mountain of Nimush, holding it fast. The survivors waited another 7 days before Ur-Shanabi released a dove, but finding no land, it returned. Later he released a swallow, but it similarly returned, having found no land. Finally he released a raven, much cooler, get shit done. The raven found the waters receding and stayed out for a snack. Ur-Shanabi made sacrifice to the gods and sent incense over the 4 winds. The gods were aroused from their sorrow when they smelt the scent. They set out to find its source and indeed found that they had not killed us all off. A delighted Mother Ururu swore never to forget these dark days they had inflicted.
Come, everyone, to the incense. But not that nasty Enlil. This was all his fault.
Of course, word spread and Enlil came storming over.
What the fuck is this?
Hi, Enlil. What's wrong?
There's people!
Yeah? So?
There's supposed to be no people! Who did this?
I mean,
Enki, probably. You know how he is.
yes, it was I, you absolute numpty. What were you thinking, flooding the place? If you wanted to diminish the people, you could have, I don't know, sent a big old lion or a wolf, that would be cool. Or Nurgle over there, we have our very own plague god, you couldn't have used him. No, you had to destroy everyone. Enlil saw the truth in Enki's words. He settled down and boarded Ur-Shanabi's boat. He took him and his wife in hand and blessed them. Fair enough, this was kind of a cock-up, and I'm kind of glad to have been thwarted, I guess. From now on, this once mortal man and his wife shall be like us gods. So, Gilgamesh, what will you do to get the gods to convene before you? Tell you what, you go a week without sleep, and we'll see what we can do. But Gilgamesh, lowering onto his haunches, found sleep instantly rush over him. Ur-Shanabi chuckled to his wife. See this man who desires life eternal, can't even stay awake.
Dear, please wake him up and send him away. His pelts are stinking up the place.
In due time, darling. These mortals can be tricky, and he's like to claim he was just resting his eyes or some such. Go and make for him his daily bread. Leave it by his head and make a mark on the wall for each day he sleeps. Gilgamesh slept away his allotted week, Ur-Shanabi waking him while his 7th daily loaf was still on the coals. Hey, what's this? I wasn't sleeping, just closed my eyes for a bit. No fibs, young man. See the loaves lined up in their varying states of decay, and see how long you slept. Oh, damn it all, I failed. I shall never escape death. Ur-Shanabi called over his ferryman. Honestly, what were you thinking bringing him here? This is most unprofessional, and I fear I have no option but to banish you. Your last task will be to take this man to the bath, clean him up, and make him presentable for his return home, and chuck those stinking pelts into the sea.
Gilgamesh was thusly cleaned up and dressed in royal robes. Perhaps swayed by the once more impressive figure before her, Ur-Shanabishtim's wife asked her husband,
The poor man's come all this way. At least let him leave with something.
Very well, Gilgamesh, let not this effort be entirely in vain. It is not full immortality, but there is a plant. It grows deep in the ocean, and will prick whomever plucks it with its thorns, but if you eat it, you will be once more as you were in your youth.
Gilgamesh didn't need to hear any more. He tied stones to his feet and jumped into the ocean. Down, down he sunk, until he reached the bottom, and the blessed plant was indeed there. He plucked it and cut off the stones, returning once more to shore. Ur-Shanabi, I have the plant. Come, let us get to Uruk, where I shall test some of it on an elder. They travelled far until night fell, and, putting his things aside, Gilgamesh found a cool pool to bathe in. While he bathed, a snake was taken with the smell of the flower. Silently it approached, and ate the plant. As it slunk away, it shed its skin, becoming once more young. Gilgamesh returned to find his salvation missing, and wept. Gilgamesh finally returns home with Ur-Shanabi, and perhaps his spirits are lifted, at least somewhat, because he shows his companions the sights, showing off the exquisite brickwork and temples of Uruk. And here is where we leave Gilgamesh, safely returned to his throne. We might hope him a little wiser than where we started, and before too long he might even accept the inevitability of death. But ultimately, we leave him as he ever was. A king, beautiful, prideful, fallible, and all too mortal.